in Kiev, and we're launching a special live event today following World Economic Forum in Davos. We're here for a special event that is organized both by Hromadske and a special initiative, Shaping Davos and Global Shapers. And first and foremost, I want to encourage you to join us online and to become an effective and instrumental part of our conversation. Basically, if you go to our Twitter account, it's at Hromadske, and actually you can use hashtags Hromadske Davos and also hashtags Shaping Davos, Shaping Talent, just to ask questions and any kind of comments you can leave there. Secondly, just go on our website and also try to join our conversation there. It's at n.hromadske.tv, and we have a live cast happening there. And all information about our guests, how to find them on social media, or just, again, joining that conversation. So at the moment, we're looking at this very important event. Usually it's being treated as very egalitarian event at Davos, as World Economic Forum. And well, people think about it as some negotiations or a forum or just a club of wealthy and old people talking about issues related to economy. But it's interesting that in recent years, in recent 2-3 years, this conversation is changing dramatically, and we're not talking only about economy, but we are taking a more broader picture, realizing that all critical issues of climate change, social equality, and others are integral part of our economic development, and without them, we cannot move on successfully building up healthy and economically successful societies. So let's look at this year's Davos 2016. Basically, the topic is mastering the fourth industrial revolution, and people at Davos supposed to talk a lot about progress when it comes to technology and how technology will change dramatically the way we work or operate, or our lives in general. But as we know, obviously, when it comes to Davos, topics that are not official are more important. So for example, this year people will talk about refugee crisis that is taking over Europe. People will talk about a global economic slowdown and Chinese economy and what kind of a role the Chinese economy will play in that. And also terrorism, international tensions, and climate change. When it comes to shaping Davos, actually, this is a very interesting conversation inside World Economic Forum. And it's related to global issues, first and foremost. And through a series of live events hosted by global shapers community all around the world, and we're part of this conversation, we will use two-way live streaming and we'll connect 20 cities from around the world to discuss 5 topics related to this theme of the World Economic Forum. Where also you can check all related information on our website, or just go to n.hromadske.tv to find out more about global shapers and their topics. So, in the studio today, I think we're going to talk more about specific topic to our conversation. It's about filling the gap of young people in government, and specifically millennials. But before that, before I'm introducing our guests, I want you to look at this specific story, which is very fascinating personally for me. It's take a kind of a look at actually when we're talking about Ukrainian millennials, who are those people? And that story is very interesting because it's a story of a young village head who became the youngest person holding an elective office in Ukraine. And take a look, and we will be right back after that.
Усвідомлюючи свою високу відповідальність, урочисто присягаю, що буду вірно служити громаді та народові України, неухильно дотримуватися Конституції України та законів України, сприяти втіленню їх у життя, охороняти права, свободи і законні інтереси громадян, сумлінно виконувати свої посадові обов'язки. Сам народився в селі Подільському, навчаюся на теперішній час у Богдана Хмельницькому, в Інституті історії, філософії, спеціальність архівознавства.
Розкажи, які зараз є в селі проблеми? От що найбільше зараз потребує село? Чого саме, чого не вистачає,
Чого
що
не-
потрібно змінювати?
Я думаю, що ви як повернули на поворот Подільське, то ви зрозуміли, чого не вистачає в нашому селі. Дороги. Це проблема номер 1. У нас по селу є два ліхтарики, які освітлюються. І це люди самі собі провели. В деяких селах, які набагато менше, ніж Подільське, вже є освітлення. Ну, я це скидаю на те, що, можливо, були якісь більш нагальні потреби. Але щоб щось зараз пообіцяти і взагалі обіцяти, треба війти в курс справ, який у нас бюджет буде, які кошти будуть на те, щоб якісь ставити плани.
Молодий дуже. Жалко, що мало досвіду. Оце я знаю. Ну, тягар нашого життя, просто жалко його. І все. Нормальний хлопчик, такий, як треба. Все він і активний, і розумний, і вдачний такий. Ну, а оце тільки того, що важко йому буде.
У нас є гуртожиток, який знаходиться в поганому стані, але там одна жіночка живе з сім'єю, яка, якби не вона, вже не було цього гуртожитка. Мрію про те, що ми відбудуємо його. В якій формі не знаю. Можливо, це і приватизація буде, щоб просто надати сім'ям ці квартири, а вони відбудують їх за власний рахунок.
Він завжди з самого дитинства хотів стати, щоб во главі, ну, і добився, чого хотів, я так думаю. Ні, несподіванки не було, звісно. Ну, а так, переживали трошки, звісно. Ну, спасибо людям, підтримали, проголосували.
Не хочу, якщо в мене щось не вийде, щоб люди сказали, так, ти нам обіцяв дороги, де дороги? Щоб не вийшло так, що я прийшов додому, сказав своїм батькам, давайте продаємо машину, хату, бо я пообіцяв зробити дорогу. І до чого я веду, що якщо я пообіцяю, от в мене такий характер, то я повинен це зробити.
В наш час важко, звісно, щось обіцяти без підтримки, без того, що немає коштів. Ну, але ж я посчитав, що молодим дорога, хай. Молодь по-другому мислить. Молодь, ну, що таке молода людина? Молода енергійна, вона дивиться на життя зовсім по-другому.
Одна з моїх основних цілей, чому я залишаюся тут, а не в місті, не шукаю собі десь кращого життя, це те, що хочу, щоб повернулася сюди молодь.
Well, that's exactly kind of story we want to talk more about. So that guy is just 22 years old, and now he's elected head of one of the Ukrainian villages. So our Today show has its own narrative, and actually, what we're looking right now is trending topics at the World Economic Forum, and if we scroll down, we can actually past the stream, we can actually see trends. What are people talking about at the Davos right now? It's China, revolution, future, technology. Joseph Biden, who also did quite a remarkable statement. We will come back to it later. But our today's topic is obviously young people in the government and how to fix this gap, because particularly we are going to talk about millennials, and it's an term that describes a whole global generation of people between 25 and 35 years old. They have a remarkable shared identity, crossing borders and cultures. And in coming couple of decades, those people are going to take over the world politically and economically speaking, but many of them are very skeptical about current government already. With climate change, with economic challenges, with social inequality, they're not very sure that the current generation is handling the job and does its job very good. So they want to be an active agents of change today. So how to fix this issue of lack of young people in government all around the world, but specifically in Ukraine, where we're seeing so many fascinating changes happening right now, and young people playing a crucial part of it. So right now, I want to introduce our guests in the studio. We have three of them at this moment. So first and foremost, it's Svetlana Kolomiyets. She's a Deputy Minister, Chief of Ministry of Ecology and Natural Resources. Then it's Denis Gursky, who is Open Data Advisor to Prime Minister of Ukraine and founder of Open Data Incubator. And Dario Stamauskas, he's advisor at the Ministry of Economic Development and Economy of Ukraine. All young people. I think you would all consider yourself part of the millennial generation. Again, this conversation is going to be panel-like, so I encourage you to be more open to ask questions to each other, shooting comments, or you can even interrupt people unless it's not very aggressively and too often, and that's my job actually to control that kind of current flow. But I'm going to start with very simple question, and we can start with whoever. Answering question in your specific field, in your job, and basically you're tied and related to the governing. What's the biggest gap when it comes to deficit of millennials? Is there any? So, Svetlana, Denis? Yep.
Kick off if you want.
Let's start with Denis then.
Okay. So, thanks for inviting me here. I assume that the biggest problem that basically I started to face when I started to deal with the government is absolutely the absolute lack of culture of sharing. I think that for me, as a person who is coming from the NGO sector, it's crucial to have the sharing of knowledge, achievements, basically goal setting and priorities between different departments, different people, and the government works in a very different way. I'm not quite sure if the foreign government works any other way, but in Ukraine, the culture of sharing is definitely absent in the government. And you can definitely feel that young people who are coming to the government, usually they are not government officials like me, but they definitely try to bring the principles of doing things from business, from NGO sector into the government. And this is basically the entry point and the focal point where they put the sufficient effort to change people of previous generations and basically are seeking some change.
So obviously sharing is important, especially for millennial generation that shares basically everything since like being able to type on computer, and maybe oversharing is a bit of a problem here. What's your gap, millennial gap at your field?
I would actually highlight like the reason why I feel the millennial gap is there, and it's very simple. I think the wages that we are now offering the younger generation that want to join the government, they are not competitive, and that's why people are not going there as much as we would like them to be. What I mean is, in Ministry of Economy and in any other ministry, there are a number of people who are volunteers, who are working for no or little salary, and their motivation is incredible. They are trying to do things by heart. They are staying in offices long hours, and they really show interest. And you can actually see the difference between you meet the person for the very first time, and you can identify how long is he working in the ministry. Is he like a recent joiner, or he's like the whole system guy? And if we were able to keep those people, the young people who join, who stay for 3 or 6 months, and motivation and patriotic feeling is one thing, but then there is life, and there are things you have to pay for. There is a life, and I mean, as a younger person, you have certain needs. Building a family, having your own place, and and some free time, and people can't afford that, and sadly they quit.
Well, yeah, millennials are a bit more expensive, right?
We can afford ourselves to more in and out, easier.
Svetlana.
I would absolutely support what my colleagues just said, and developing the idea of Denise. What I feel in our ministry is a great difference between culture of those people who are recently comers and those people who are in the ministry for a long time. We have absolutely different approaches to our work, and if those people who just came from business are very, result-oriented, pushing a lot, have a lot of energy and initiative, those people who have more experience, and that's what lady said in this video, that this guy is very young and he does not have enough experience. That's good that he doesn't have enough experience. Sometimes it's good, and for our country it's good. New experience is very important for government now. So it's often difficult to find, to talk in the same language with those people, with the old team. And talking about what Darius said about motivation, of course we can attract a lot of people, volunteers from business, but the matter is, and the main issue is, for how long can you really retain these people in the ministry without proper motivation?
What I wanted to show you a quick graph, which is something that you're all talking about, and it's about it's a Global Shapers poll that they did all around the world, and it shows that if you can see this this number on when it comes to the government, 54% of millennials think that the government is the least inclusive institution for the millennial generation. That's why so many people are either skeptical to join the government, or they feel and they see the government as a problem, not as a like an instrument of change. Do you all feel kind of alienated inside your own governmental structures or positions, whether it's advisory, whether it's part of the actual government?
Just basically giving a quick comment on the graph, I think that...
Can we show it again, please?
Somehow, we consider information tech to be almost as important as the government is. Mm-hmm. So I think that the combination of smarter government, the development of smarter government is directly connected to the extensive use of IT.
When you trying to advise the government on open data, do you feel like there is welcoming acceptance and enthusiasm, or you have to kind of fight the system? What is this? Because that's something that many millennials feel.
Well, my mandate is open data. That's right, and the questions that I have to answer are how information is being collected, how it's stored, and how it is being shared. So basically, answering the question how is the question that the government doesn't know how to answer themselves, but at the same time, they are happy to use what is called business intelligence in terms of the government and make right decisions based on the data and basically use the tech to predict things, to analyze things, and basically make smarter decisions. So I think that IT is basically the solution because everyone is using iPhones, iPads, and everything else. It's just the contents that we have to pour into these devices to make the government smarter.
I'm actually curious myself, like how do the government actually understand the meaning, the definition of open data? Do they understand? Do we see the bigger picture, or is that something you come in, you ask, and they do it just because you ask it, or because they actually see and believe in the idea of bringing a benefit to the country?
It feels like the government is very supportive. So different people understand different parts of open data. Somebody understands it from IT perspective. Others think that this is open statistics, open analytics. But at the same time, I couldn't find a person. So for some people, it means anti-corruption. But I couldn't find a person who is resistant to opening data and basically starting this process.
Do you feel alienated, or like your job is to fight the system is one of the kind of biggest obstacles?
Well, if we look at one of the many definitions of millennials, they are in a way called the rebel generation, And we don't like to be affiliated with left or right, one party or another, because this is so dynamic. The world we're living in is so dynamic. And if politics, back in the days when the politician used to say something, it was something like written on a paper and that's it. And if you haven't read the paper, you probably haven't seen it or haven't heard it. Now you can double check, triple check information in a split second, and you can identify where is the BS, where is actually true. And you can find your new hero tomorrow. You can disappoint with that hero and change your approach the very next day. So I believe the young people I see in the government, and then probably for myself, is I don't actually like myself to follow those heroes. I have my own view of the system. Someone else has a similar but his own view. Just 10 seconds. And we are trying to enforce what we believe in. Sadly, the system, obviously, it's showing some resistance.
But your case is very interesting because you're coming from abroad, right, from Lithuania, and I've been to Lithuania just recently, and I talked to young people, and many say that they're so excited to come to Ukraine because there are so many opportunities for them career-wise, and they would love to cross the border and to work there. And I met even British people, millennials, in Lithuania who are working for the government or are elected, officials there, just because for them it doesn't matter, where this job is geographically, but it matters, what kind of an impact you can, achieve there.
Wow, this topic is so broad. Don't get me started. I mean, well, starting from my parents, they have no idea why I'm here. So that's the millennial gap.
Do you have any?
I have the objectives I'm here for, and they're not following me. But that's the millennial gap on the field. In my department, in the Ministry of Economy, we have people working from Greece. There's a new person coming from France, and quite a few international people are here. And all of them here for separate reasons. And obviously, Ukraine is now this field where you can get unbelievable experience and put in place the skills and knowledge you probably brought somewhere from Western environment. And it's once in a lifetime opportunity, and why not? Well, when it comes to Lithuania, for example, obviously we have some issues there, political debates on certain points. But comparing to Ukraine, it's no offense to Lithuania, but it's kind of boring. The events and the things you can do here is on a much larger scale.
Svetlana, if I'm not mistaken, you're coming from Eastern Ukraine.
Right.
And you have to deal with two things, basically. Being a young person inside the Ukrainian government that is largely not so young in general. But also dealing with the issue that are many Eastern Ukrainians who felt, young Eastern Ukrainians who felt kind of robbed of opportunities because of the war and the conflict. Many moved to other places in Ukraine or abroad just because of that. When it comes to employment, they're seeking for different reasons for self-realization or seeking new jobs. Do you feel that, kind of double pressure just because of that? Because many people left Ukraine already, young people in previous years, just because of lack of opportunities. And now you're, unfortunately or luckily, a perfect test case for Eastern Ukrainian people, young people who moved from war-torn zone, but can they find opportunities in Ukraine in other places?
To be frank, I moved like 10 years ago or something, so it's not my...
You have a lot of friends there who probably faced it.
Yes, I do. Still have. I do not have any difficulties connected with my Eastern Ukrainian, let's say, past. More problems connected, of course, with being a young professional. Basically, I'm the youngest among deputy ministers in this government. So being a woman, being a young woman, of course, it's difficult from the one hand. From the other hand, probably it's the most interesting and the most challenging job I could ever find in this country. And Ukraine still has a lot of opportunities. And the fact that guys from Lithuania, Greece, and other countries are coming to Ukraine in order to try to realize them, their potential here, that means a lot.
I want to show you one infograph, and it's about institutional trust and difference between people trusting institution. In Ukraine, there is a huge gap when it comes to trusting any kind of governmental institution.
Right.
But with millennials, and if we can put that infographics right now, it's the next one. I need to ask producers to put the next one. So millennials in general don't believe in governmental institutions so much anymore. So when we go and looking into polling, we can see that basically they believe more NGOs and they believe more non-governmental actors, and they have either no idea about the government at all, and you can see that graphic. So it's very interesting. So green. It's again from a Global Shapers poll. Green is the support. Yellow is, well, I don't care. And red one is the negativity. And when you see the government, which is the second from the top, people do not trust the government. They don't believe that government could be effective tool to change their lives. Svetlana, yeah, and I'm gonna start.
Yes.
I'm going to start with Svetlana,
Okay.
and we will go in any direction. So do you think that just by having their young people, is it enough to kind of break this pattern of not believing in the government when it comes to millennials?
It's not enough, but it's very important part, because young people usually are more open for communication, which means more transparency. And transparency basically means trust. If someone from NGO, for example, drops me a line in Facebook, I usually answer within an hour. And it means that
Benchmark set.
and it means that we have very good communication, and people trust me more if I'm responsive, right? Of course, it's not enough just to be young. A lot of things have to be changed in this country. In my ministry, I'm responsible for deregulation process, which means that we are trying to reduce functions of state bodies and organs in order to have less problems in interconnection with business. I mean, not to influence so much, to step back when it's possible to step back and to let the market work freely. And that's another important condition, this for me.
I basically wanted to come back to the point of trusting the government, because I've seen the poll as well. Millennials generally tend to trust less in everything around them. And the other figure is that actually they believe more in volunteering than, and there are certain figures I've seen in US, for example, where more people volunteer per year than they actually come to a voting poll. Where it's basically showing like they believe in their own, because they want to contribute to the local communities. And Ukraine is actually an unprecedented example in the whole Europe. I haven't seen this thing in Lithuania or UK, where I used to live. The number of people volunteering for various reasons in various organizations, starting from government or armed forces field or any other place.
It's fascinating because it's part of global trend.
Yes.
And I believe in the next 3 to 5 years, the experience and the mindset people have set up a year and a half ago will tremendously benefit the country.
Yeah, because a lot of deputy ministers and a lot of ministers now are volunteers, in fact, because the salaries we have, it's not something which is really fair reward.
Volunteering or
It's
charity job. But
yeah, something like that. But when I hear people are skeptic and not very positive about the government, I usually say them, okay, come, take a project and work. If you want to change something, we are very open. Please come and do it. No problem.
Yeah, sure. If you
just wanted to say that basically winning the trust back to the government is one of the tasks that all of us have, because somehow we all made some steps into the international career. And as Darius said, we all are rebels. And basically this requires to be a rebel, to work with
Hromadske
or
can
for
really
Ukrainian.
relate it, and
Exactly.
people at Hromadske to that.
And I think we are just
I used to watch you
basically trying to win the trust back by basically constructing the projects that we work on in the manner where people have a lot of points to attach themselves to. So basically, they could influence decision-making process, they could be engaged into public discussions, they can be involved into different events. So basically, they can influence the process on the go. And this is the main change that I see in the current government. You cannot basically do any change to existing law without basically discussing it with people, doing the Facebook poll or something like that. And yes, that's true that people usually trust more to young newcomers because they can find the direct contact with them via social networks. And basically, they do the double check of news through people via those personal communication channels.
From the one hand, we need more trust to government. From the other hand, we need less government at all. I would say. Ministry of Economic Development. Maybe.
We are in the lead of going to the right way.
Reducing the government, but that's another very important topic. But while we have Svetlana here, I want to actually to ask a question about gender gap, because for millennial generation, equality, social equality of any kind is very important. That's why, for example, government as an older institution is, sometimes they see the government as some kind of archaic form just because it's not so inclusive. And when it comes to women, that's very huge problem and gender problem. So we're right now looking at the infographics of Ukrainian government. It's about age, but also about gender gap. We have just what we see is just 2 women participating in the Ukrainian government as ministers, just on top of 18 men. And the other one, for example, when it comes to Davos, Davos is also progressing, but still, this year just 18% of annual meeting participants are women. And which is something to talk about. I want to actually to show, if you can show graphs from the Ukrainian parliament and gender gap and age gap at the Ukrainian parliament, and it also shows that women are largely underrepresented, just 11% of women serving in the Ukrainian parliament. I'm going to play a small clip right now from yesterday's Davos meeting, and it went viral. It's a soundbite of Sheryl Sandberg, and she's Chief Operational Officer of Facebook. And that's what she basically started World Economic Forum with, that kind of phrase. Let's take a listen.
Well, at the risk of shocking everyone so early in the morning, men still run the world. I'm not sure it's going that well. Look, there are 17 countries in this world run by women, 17 out of hundreds of countries. Almost every country in the world has less than 5% of its top companies run by women, including the United States and every country in Europe. That means we're not using the full talents of the population. That means when it comes to making the decisions that impact our world, women are not at those tables where decisions are made.
So, Svetlana, do you feel frustrated?
No, I don't.
Because we don't see a lot of women ministries leading ministries.
Yes.
We see maybe more women as deputies, which is true. But at the same time, the government is male-oriented and predominantly run by male.
Absolutely. I do not feel any problems, do not experience any problems with this. And I'm lucky to work in the ministry where gender balance is more or less observed. We have approximately the half of people, the half of the staff is women. So
the half?
Yeah.
Okay.
Even more than.
But it's run. It's being run by.
But it's Ministry of Ecology.
Yeah.
By men and 2 women deputy ministers. So more or less balanced.
But do you see the problem that that Ukraine has just 11% of women in the parliament? For example, obviously it's not so representative in the business, I guess, but it's still kind of a problem. And it's why, for example, millennial women are not so enthusiastic about joining the government that is run by men.
I do not feel any specific obstacles for women to join the parliament, the government. I feel like it's more like a cultural problem. We have to work with the girls starting from the school, explaining this issue of importance of participating in social life, importance in self-realization, because traditionally the culture of Ukraine is a woman has to be at home, right?
Well, every culture,
more or less,
suppresses,
yes,
right? Mostly
but
suppresses
what
women.
especially for Ukraine is very difficult. So I do not feel problems, but of course I would like to see more women in the parliament and in the government. For me, it's usually more difficult to find the right solution quickly with the counterpart represented by women.
And there is no pay gap, for example.
No.
Okay. Man?
In Lithuania, it's pretty much simple. We have head of state, Dalia Grybauskaitė, female. We have speaker, female. All the ladies here in Ukraine, and know where we are. They are in my department because like 80 or 90% of my department staff are ladies as well. And head of department, Elena Trugub.
80, 90?
I would give a guess, 80 to 90. Yeah, that's and Minister of Economy itself has, I believe, 2, if I'm correct, deputy as females as well. So
3.
3.
Yes.
Yeah. So. Well, in our area, it's pretty much everything balanced.
I really feel more problems with the young age. Yesterday, security service in the cabinet of minister asked me to provide my student ID when entering the building.
So they're reverse ages.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you feel any troubles?
I see that, well, basically, there is a full scale of opportunities for women in this country.
So why there are
I don't
not so
see
many
any barriers except those that exist in people's heads.
Yes.
Just go and take it.
I actually would add to that because it's pretty. I believe it's a little bit easier here if you're an active woman to show yourself and actually get into the position you really want to and do something. Because it's easier to stand out.
But there is, for example, very interesting point that everybody makes, especially feminists, that basically if you want to run a ministry or the state, you have to showcase some kind of manly features, right? To be like a man and strong, and you cannot be, just not manly enough to run the country. That was the case with Margaret Thatcher and other world's leaders that they felt this pressure, like Hillary Clinton running for the office right now is feeling the same pressure that, well, maybe there is those who criticize say maybe she will go hysterical at some point and she's in charge of nukes. So is there also the problem for Ukrainian women who wants to run the ministries?
Well, my sense is that what you're trying to talk about right now is that, well, women have to guarantee confidence to other people. So this is the only maybe masculine feature that women are trying to demonstrate to basically compensate on something, I don't know what, but this is exactly what people want. If they choose a leader, they have to be confident. And basically, it doesn't really matter if you're a woman or a man. This is the responsibility that you are taking, and, well, people just judge you if you can carry out or not.
Yes, I would support that because it's just a feature of a human being. If you're a human being, it doesn't matter male or female, you have to have a list of features. You need to be a strong leader to lead.
That's actually why we want more millennials in the government, because those ideas are quite progressive, and that's something we have to have when people are governing the country. So thank you so much for joining this part of panel. We're going to have the second part of the panel right after next report, next dispatch. And what we want to show you is actually millennials, Ukrainian millennials in action. Well, it's a report from a while ago, a couple of months ago, when a group of youngsters, mostly you call them hipsters, then civil society activists and LGBTI activists, pressing the parliament to pass a crucial legislation for on the country's path to Euro integration. Let's take a look.
Ми прийшли з годинниками, тому що є певний дедлайн, який ЄС очікує від Ради для прийняття цих законів, для того, щоб лібералізувати візовий режим. І час минає, але з 10 законів, які мали бути проголосовані, проголосували тільки за 6. Тому ми прийшли для того, щоб дотиснути, для того, щоб прийняли 4 останні закони.
Один з них – це про зняття недоторканності з народних обранців, тому що це дуже важливо, наприклад, тому що в залі сидять такі народні депутати, які знаходяться там під слідством, на них відкривають якісь там провадження за кордоном, а тут до них не можуть достукатися, бо в них є ця недоторканність, їх не можуть притягнути до відповідальності.
Можливо, не всі розуміють, що ці закони означають. І наскільки це важливо.
Довіра до акції, звичайно, не дуже висока, тому що люди не думають, що можуть якось впливати особисто.
Натисне це натякає депутатам на те, що треба треба тиснути на кнопку, грубо кажучи, і тисне, натякає громадянам нашим, що треба тиснути на депутата для того, щоб депутат натиснув на кнопку. Час, насправді, в Україні не так багато часу. Тобто час спливає, Україна не змінюється, всі знову звикають, і знову через 10 років робити революцію я не хочу.
Я представитель ЛГБТ-сообщества, поэтому я представляю здесь его конкретно. Я пришла конкретно из-за поправки в Трудовом кодексе касательно дискриминации по сексуальной ориентации и гендерной идентичности.
We are willing to set up special economic zones that will employ these refugees. Now, when you do that, not only are you giving the refugee the sense of economic self-sufficiency, which will lower the cost of hosting refugees, but you also give him skills and training that he will put to good use once he returns to his country. So in a sense, you're incubating a post-war Syrian economy across the border in Jordan that will kickstart the recovery process in Syria once the conflict ends. And that is really critical. And the alternative is actually quite frightening. The alternative is for these refugees to continue living in poor living conditions, to languish in dependency, to become vulnerable to recruitment. So what we're talking about is a real paradigm shift from short-term crisis relief thinking to more holistic, sustainable approaches and a new blueprint for dealing with refugee issues.
Welcome back. So this is a special live event between Hromadske and Davos Shapers, and we're talking about how to bridge the gap between young people and older generation, and how to actually invite more millennials in government, particularly Ukrainian government. Again, I encourage you to follow our conversation live. We have a live translation. If you go to our Twitter account, at Hromadske, and actually check it out, best quotes. But also, can you please use hashtags Hromadske Davos, Shaping Talent, and World Economic Forum, WEF16. You can ask questions, shoot at us and to our guests, or leave any comments if you feel like it. And follow all the conversation on our website. It's n.hromadske.tv. You can check live stream there, just on the start page. And also you can see live feed of best quotes is also there. Feel free to check it out, our own exclusive reporting too. Well, now we're having second set of guests in our studio. We're gonna talk about the same issues, but with a bit different angle, how basically practically to bridge that gap and what can be done to engage millennials. As we talked during previous panel, actually millennials usually don't feel very enthusiastic about the government, and when they join the government, other stuff rather than a traditional salary or career position is driving force behind their decisions. So right now, in the studio, we have, first and foremost, Denis Brodsky, who is independent expert on HR management and also an expert at the reforming reanimation package of reform. This is an NGO that helps out the Ukrainian government with reforms. We also have Vladislav Rashkovan, who's deputy governor of the Ukrainian National Bank, basically Ukrainian Central Bank. And also we have Taras Buk, who is program officer at the International Republican Institute. Well, welcome. And again, I will briefly briefly introduce rules. There are basically not so many of them. It's more of a panel, so feel free to comment on each other's remarks, ask questions, interrupt politely. If you do not, you'll be fine. If not, that's where my job is. So let's start with actually hearing the voices of millennials. And this is a huge problem, especially in case of Europe or the States or even Ukraine. When it comes to age and demographics, millennials in Ukraine, they do not face very good future because the country is aging quickly. There are more and more voters who are much more older, and they will decide the future, electoral future of the country years to come. And actually, this is a big problem. If we don't have nominal power to change, to vote in our own people, young people inside the government, what kind of other ways we have to do that? And I want our producer to show infographic on young voices, and it's basically millennials talk about huge discontent when it comes to issues that the general public cares about and what they care about. So, for example, in case of Ukraine, and you can see this actually International Republican Institute poll, young people in Ukraine, they do not feel like strong enough that the government pays attention to them. Although, because of a lot of young people joining the government in recent couple of years, those polling numbers are a bit higher. But as we can see, they're getting smaller, actually, from the previous year. So, how would you fix the millennial gap in the government? And, let's just start with you.
Okay. I have to admit that there is a gap, not in terms of the millennials or the younger people join the government. It's a much bigger issue of new thinkers joining the government. People with a new mentality or different than the current state mentality we have in Ukraine. And in a recent panel, you had a few bright guys coming here trying to work for our government. And if you look at what's happening in the Ukrainian government, out of 17 ministries, would be enough to have 3 fingers on your hand to count progressive ones. If you talk about millennials, they definitely demonstrate a certain difference with other older people because they have a different sort of beliefs. Mm-hmm. What drives millennials? They want freedom, independence. They want a chance to progress, to develop, to self-realize. Mm-hmm. These people easily follow ideas and concepts, and they follow leaders. That's very clear. And talking about bringing in millennials into the government, we've had this example already 2 years ago. Cohorts of young people were joining with a different sort of partnership, different governmental institutions, be it small projects, large projects, volunteers, joining the officially taking the job in a public services. We had a massive inflow of different people, young people actually, coming to hoping that country will change with their help. What we have now, and a massive outflow of these people, because they're not welcomed, they don't have somebody to follow. We have just few ministries where these young people stay, where these young people deliver results, and they have pride of what they achieve for reforming our country. 3 out of 17. So I believe that the major issue we have to address is to shaping the leadership, bringing in real leaders into the top government chairs, instead of having old-style government an old-style department, old-style dinosaurs running our government. Because then what's happened, the new people come, see what's inside, and leave. They come, see what's inside, and leave. And this is not going to change, and that's not going to help. It's even worse, because these people leave, they're being frustrated. It's tremendous thing that people come with a great hope to help your country to progress and to reform.
They go back to non-governmental sector, and they're still, as I know personally, so many people who quit the government, they go back to non-governmental sector, being active actors of change still. Vladislav, Ukraine's central bank is kind of one of the places where you can see more and more young people, and seems like, I don't know, you explain us. Is it a part of a policy of engaging more young people, and especially millennials, but just different minds in younger generation, or is it just like it happened like that?
Yeah, if you don't mind, I will answer this question as a result of what I want to tell you,
Sure.
Because definitely this is not a policy, but more is a follow-up what just Denis said. I think in order to cover the gap of the millennials and also in the government, and to make the bridge with the previous session, is first, and not only in Ukraine but globally, we need to decrease the role of the governments. Because this is one of the voices what millennials usually say. Actually, people want to have less interfering in their life. They want to have more freedom, and therefore less regulation, and as we name in Ukraine, deregulation. But I think it's globally also millennials want less and less government to interfere in their day-to-day life. For remaining services where the government still need it, I think what millennials would like to see, they would need more robots. Robots and new technologies. And yes, today we just heard Denis, who is working on open data. So you don't need to go to someone to ask the certificate. You just go to internet and to have this data. You don't need to ask someone where to take data. You just know where this data is, and it's all this there and all the information there. You don't need to explain why you need this data. You just take it. And this is about the people who are using the services of the government and those who are in the government as well, because actually I don't need to send a letter to another ministry to get the data. I just, as millennial, I can go to the web and to see it. And the new technologies like blockchain would even help to the people around the globe to get and to share data easily without any barriers. And this is what millennials want also for the government's work globally. The third thing, I would say, for remaining services we still kept with the government, what we need in order to cover the gap, we need people with more critical thinking. So people who are not used to execute orders like in army, but who are given the freedom to think and to take decisions.
And millennials perfect. They dislike the government. They don't stay at job very often if they don't like it.
So, and this is what I'm telling. So the critical thinking is important, which is not always as a skill which is still required by the governments globally, but also in Ukraine, because you are used to be a part of the hierarchy where you are you are working, you are not critical thinker, and this is what Denis just said. The second, on top of the critical thinking, I would say that these people need responsibility, because this is what also people look for. They want to be responsible, accountable, and responsible for decisions they take, and they don't like to be a part of the bureaucracy, which usually is through bureaucracy, you make their responsibility, because collecting 50 signatures later, who's responsible for the suit, as you name? And the third,
dehumanizing too.
Exactly. And the third thing which we're looking, which millennials now looking for the government, I think, is to serve. Yeah, because this is not to report to the government, not to be, under the government, umbrella, but the government officials and the civil servants globally in the world, Europarliament, the government of Ukraine, or US Senate, are people who are serving the state, serving the people living there. The world becomes more global, therefore they're serving the global, especially the global leaders and the global public servants. And this is what millennials need. Coming back to the National Bank, this is what we are looking in people. We are looking people who are critical thinkers, who can take responsibility for making things happen, and who are ready to serve the country. In the last 18 months, we have we reduced our staff for 6,500 people, so we have less. We have still not so many robots, but we are working in that direction.
Robots are as expensive as millennials.
And 350, and I said nothing about the price. 350 new people came to the bank, and actually this is the skills which we request from them.
But that's an example of what I've said. National Bank of Ukraine is one of the few examples when you have a different type of leadership that addresses the gap and that brings in people and brings the barriers within and understands how to improve and change the system.
Taras, we talked during previous panel and here too about the challenges that prevent millennials from joining the government, and we saw your polling. That's very rare question for Ukrainian pollsters to ask about what's your attitude as young people towards the government. And we see the decrease of people who feel kind of that the government does enough for younger generation. Do you think that all those problems like being underpaid, the government that still is just a cluster of different clubs and more progressive, less progressive, and they don't feel like the government could deliver, that's why they opt out more for non-governmental agencies to work with?
I will respond with my personal example. I would fully agree with Denis about two great challenges. First, freedom to act, and second, this motivation and leadership. Because exactly 10 years ago, I joined the government, I joined the presidential administration. It was, post-Orange Revolution. Everyone hoped for European integration, like youth came to power, and I left my comfortable life in my native city of Lviv. I came to the presidential administration, and there were only just few people who did this. And it was really hard to change the system. We were working like since early morning till literally last metro train. But the effect was not very useful because we still were working within this old system. We have been put in this, framework of old bureaucracy, legislation, and it was hard to create something. It was hard to initiate something. When you initiated something, you would be sure to hear something like, "Why do you initiate it? Why do you have to do it? You were not ordered to do it." So this is like old style of governance. The difference today we see is those leaders who give possibility for young people to realize themselves. A very great example is Odessa region, where Mikhail Saakashvili was appointed as head of the Oblast administration. And probably one of the best things he has already done for Ukraine, he gave possibility for young people to come to power. Tens, dozens, or maybe even hundreds of people came to those open positions. So 26, they have now 26 new heads of Rayon state administration. So typically this is like old corrupt person, but now almost all of those 26 people are millennials.
Okay, yes, it's true, but at the same time, the system still stands strong, and it's very hard for young people to it's very easy, the barrier is low, it's very easy to access the government, but to change from within is different. I want to ask you another question about balancing priorities, because the much more grown-up population of the Ukraine, they want different stuff. This is from a Global Shapers poll. It shows priorities of millennials when it comes to economy, when it comes to reforms. And basically, they want more social economic, tackle more social economic inequality. They want tackling climate change and education. And the next poll is, again, from, I think, from International Republican Institute, shows the general attitudes of Ukrainians towards reforms. And they want a bit different things. They want more focus on economy apart from war, but we're talking about reforms. More about the economy, more about healthcare and economic growth. So for me, education, climate change, more inclusive governance. For larger population, it's economy. How do you balance by trying to invite young people working for the government, but you obviously have to deliver for larger population on some topics that millennials do not feel like they're absolutely top priority?
Well, it's not the issue of gap with the millennials. It's largely that, probably it was Kaha Bindukidze who said that the problem of every reform, the challenge for every reform, that you are reforming for non-existing customer. You're changing the world for somebody who doesn't want it, who doesn't need it, who doesn't understand they need it. And again, look at what's happening. The young people, they need to understand, first of all, economy comes first. You cannot have a great access to education, you cannot have climate issues tackled within your country until you fix economy. That's fundamental.
But fixing economy, for example, like general public thinks that fixing economy is just delivering growth, delivering lower inflation, fixing exchange rates with the currency. When millennials, they think that delivering economic growth is not enough. You have to fix social and economic inequality.
But you need to fix the economy first.
But it's
still
a
economy
different
comes
approach.
first. It's not a different approach, it's just a matter of explaining it. It's still economy comes first. And again, look at what's happening with our Ministry of Economic Growth and Trade. This is the most progressive ministry we have in our country. And probably the most population of millennials working in that ministry. Look at the National Bank of Ukraine, which is just another example of a good leadership. They're in a wise policy of attracting younger people. They explain that I wouldn't say that's a bold and a solid decision made with the top officials of the National Bank of Ukraine, but in a subtle way, you see that what they communicate to the population, we are important part of a national economy. Lots of things depend on how national bank works. We want here to reform. We want here to change. We want to have a healthy financial system in the country. And then the constant message that's coming out of a national bank. And that's what attracts people there. They see purpose. They don't want to come to the government just to work for the government. It's not what we want to do. Those are people, they are driven by ideas. They feel needs to attach to something. And if the leadership can bring them that attachment, and show them, we are here to reform, we give you purpose. Because millennials are the first generation that not in a quest for good life, not in a quest of the good income, they're in a constant quest for purpose in their life. That's why you have so many young people working in the NGOs, in the volunteering activities, not for money. They come there for purpose. They want to be proud of what they do for their communities. Again, the another issue, again, back to what Vladislav was saying, less government, more decentralization, more local communities, more local community services delivered. That's where the young people would come, because they feel then close attachment to what they do. It's not for the government, it's not for the nation, it's for people around us, for people who live next door.
You know that what Denis just said is not given as a thought in government. I think not only in Ukraine, but again coming back to globally. You wanted stories, and you were speaking about the stories before. In May, we had a strategic session of already 80 people. 40 of them were new, and 40 were from the all the people who worked in the previous National Bank, and we were discussing who is our client. Who is the client of the National Bank? So we start government. Is government a client of the National Bank? For sure not. Yes, we work very closely with government. Are banks our clients? Because this was my thought, that the central bank is working mostly with banks. And therefore, banks, their managers, their owners of the banks, or even the clients of the banks, are they our clients? No. Our clients is the population of Ukraine. And when we start thinking about that, and we're thinking that National Bank is a bank of nation, you differently look at your job, at your importance, as Denis said, the importance of your job. Because actually with inflation, which is a primary role of the central bank is to control inflation in the country, it's a tax for all the people, not only for bank clients. The weak banks, due to the weak supervision, and the insolvent banks, is a fine which people pay, unfortunately, for the weak supervision in the central bank. And therefore, our role is to work with everyone in Ukraine. How you do it is very difficult, because, as Denis said, you need to really to work with the communication, to deliver your messages. And I'm sure that we can easily speak with investors, with other central banks, with IMF, because we speak on the same language. But to speak with the population, with schools, with university, for example, on the 1st of September, we went, all the board members of the central bank went to give lectures in the universities. It was the first time ever, and because we wanted to deliver the messages what the central bank is doing exactly to the millennials. And this is the role of the central bank also to increase the financial literacy. One of the ideas we have now, which is not implemented yet, but I will open the secret, we want to take the main bloggers or the people who are very popular among the millennials and to ask them to deliver some message about the currency, about interests, to make it's in YouTube, something like that, so like 30 seconds, 40 seconds videos to explain, also to increase the financial literacy of people in Ukraine, but also on young people in Ukraine, because young people don't look, not always go to the website of the central bank, and they go to YouTube or they go to internet.
Well, unfortunately, we have to wrap it up, but at the same time, I want to kind of finish with one general question to all of you. And I will start with Taras, but first and foremost, it's a problem of delivering to millennials new messages from the government, because we talked so much during the first part of the conversation about what millennials expect from the government, why do they join the government. But it's important to realize are there any ideas inside the government, and are there any realization how to attract young people if there is any need? So first and foremost is to break this narrative from old messaging to new messaging. I find this next clip of Joe Biden, American Vice President, at yesterday's Davos very important, because he talks about something that's very important for millennials, is about social equality and how governments involvement in business or economic institutions do not deliver equality when it comes to their everyday life. Let's take a listen.
When it comes to LGBT rights in the workplace, the world is looking to you. I know that sounds like hyperbole, sounds like an exaggeration, but they look to you. You have more impact than anything the federal government has done, or the Supreme Court of the United States has done, or that Barack Obama and Joe Biden have done, or lighting up the White House. You have more impact. You have more impact in the countries around the world than we do on those social issues. You literally can change the terms of the debate. I don't mean overnight, but literally collectively you can change the terms of the debate and shift some public opinion. You actually put governments on notice. Mistreatment by cops, denial of health care, isolation, always in the name of culture, which takes me to my concluding point. I've had it up to here with culture. I really mean it. Culture never justifies rank, raw discrimination or violation of human rights. There is no cultural justification. None. And think of the country still be hiding behind, this is our culture. Well, the people used to be cannibals. That was part of the culture. People used to do terrible things. It was part of the culture. The progress of humankind has been a steady progress toward acknowledging the basic fundamental rights of other people.
Else. I think is an important event.
Well, that's something that was viral yesterday coming from World Economic Forum, because, again, I think that it's important not only because of LGBTI equality, which Ukraine has huge problem with, but changing narrative and changing kind of messaging, not based on something that it's historically right or culturally right, like the older generation tries to impose on the society, but appealing to young people who, and generation of millennials has absolutely fascinating identity with crossing borders and cultures. Do you think that Ukrainian government has anything like that to deliver when it comes to messages to young people that could change this gap and attract more young people working for the government and in the governing?
I think yes. If we go back to the opinion polls organized by the International Republican Institute, and if respondents are asked what are key problems for Ukraine today, most likely you'll see on the first point fighting corruption. So if there was a clear message that this government is going to fight corruption, if there's a clear message that not only message but real deeds that this government is fighting corruption, this is what will make Ukrainian youth believe in this government and will make them join this government.
I would say, repeat what Denis said, the millennials look for leadership, so they want people to follow first, and they want to have victory, so because they want to be a part of the winning game and not losing game, and therefore they will always join those who are leaders and who are winning and go forward.
Yeah, and I would also add to that what they will get in return is the respect, is the gratitude, and some PR campaign. So I would advise our politicians, stop messaging your success. Start triumphing success of your people, of your reports. If you start thanking your people for what they do, for what they achieve, then you become an attractive leader. So instead of having a PR campaign of how great I am in reforming this, start talking about how great people do this reform.
And come to National Bank if you want to be a part of such team.
That's actually what they do, because you find from Vladislav post on the Facebook, he thanks the people working for National Bank, what they do for their achievements, and that's really fascinating. That thinks of people, well, I want to be thanked for something like this also. I may go to join the National Bank of Ukraine, so well done.
Well, thank you so much for joining our special live event with Hromadske and Global Shapers. Once again, I don't think that we have came up with any specific formula how to attract millennials into the government, but at the same time, it's important that there is a understanding that there is a gap when it comes to millennials and ideas that young people could provide, and this gap should be fixed. And not in 2 decades when millennials will take over demographically, but now. Well, I'm gonna finish our event with really remarkable story, but first and foremost, I want you to follow up our conversation on our website and .hromadske.tv, where you can watch the whole event in one podcast, or actually continue participating in discussion using hashtag Hromadske Davos, Shaping Talent, and also WEF16, which is a official hashtag of World Economic Forum. So the story that we're closing the show with is absolutely moving. It's a story of a young person who is Ukrainian millennial, who went to the Eastern Ukrainian front line, came back as a veteran, and despite all challenges that he faces, he decided to restart his own life in a very inspiring way. So take a look, and thank you for joining us today, and we will be right back soon.
Тут стоїть змільчитель, який подрібнює солому до фракції 2-1,5 мм. О, пощів пилюкою і подрібнює. Ну покажи, що.
Звідки ти гроші взяв на те, щоб це стартувати?
34 тисячі дали мені держава, дала. За те, що я втратив 2 ноги. Що ж пішов захищати, а в кінці дали гроші. Ну, а пункту з тих 300 тисяч, ну що це, такі великі гроші, що це що? Це ж невеликі гроші. Ну, поставлю їх вдома. На слідуючий день я велосипеда за них куплю. Та і все. Щось треба робити, і що ж. Без двох ніг теж бути. Треба бути все время в движенні. Сидіти в коляскі вдома, жиром обростати. Так що такі діла. Тим більше людям дав роботу. Хоч невелика та зарплата, але хоч щось, як взагалі нічого.
Люди ще не знають і бояться. 1800 – це людська зарплата на даний час. І людина зараз боїться його брати. Хай хтось попробує, а ми потім візьмемо. Отак всі говорять. Хай хтось попробує, а потім ми і скажемо. Цей год буде тяжко, питань нема. Цей год лінію треба налагодити, все треба поналагоджувати. Але вже на той год люди розкушують, попробують, то на той год будуть брати. Так Ось такі діла. Повне? Бо ще 2 тюка кинеш, та буде повне. А, ну ти медленно працюєш, Сашулька. Може ще до Каракоша зайди, може в неї мотор. Ну що, пішли? Держи.
Що?
Гелька дреш. Мішка, дай мені телефон, я до мене позвоню, спитаю, ну, коли я там поставив йому туди. Нормально? Я понял, що в руку мене. Оля! Оля, йди до мене. Я тобі її верну. Класний велик?
Да.
Ну що ж, собака вже не треба?
Надо.
Давай. Да. В розмірах такий же, так? Да?
Да. Розміри це херня, головне, щоб тут їхав.
Скільки ж він бляха? Па-па-па-па. Тяжко, без 2 ног тяжко, блядь. Щось хочеш зробити, як представ, як я все життя робив, все, сам своїми руками. Це хата, це все ж, блядь. Все, це все. Своїми руками робив. Думав спочатку хату продати, але в хату душу і сили, і все вклав. Все, що можна, все сюди вклав.
Папа, ти куди?
Зараз тобі тата получиш. Хочу, щоб ми лучше жили набагато. Щоб мої діти хоча б. Вже я, може, мать його, так як я вже, а діти, щоб лучше жили. Чим ми.
Цей резонанс, ця інформаційна хвиля, вона довольно серьезно бьет по имиджу организации.
Мы, юристы, обязаны действовать. Только либо есть доказанный факт, либо, как вы сказали в самом начале, мы пользуемся источниками. Да? Как бы вот, когда у вас человек с закрытым лицом, для нас, юристов, это не источник. Под видом гуманитарного груза зашел этот груз в Одессу. Под видом гуманитарного груза. Если сейчас будет доказано, что хотя бы один из предметов был продан, это будет контрабанда, это будет страшный удар по Одессе.
Добрий вечір, шановна аудиторія Громадського. Мене звати Дмитро Гнап, і ви дивитесь проєкт «Очна ставка». Це проєкт редакції розслідувань Громадського телебачення, проєкт команди «Слідство інфо». В ньому ми розповідаємо про подробиці, які стали відомі нам